Hey, welcome back to another Black City coffee vlog. In this video, I'm finally going to put together some tips, I guess, because you guys keep asking me. And I'm like, please, no, I don't know. And maybe that's my own imposter syndrome kicking in and telling me that I'm not good enough to provide any advice or something like that. And I think that's a flaw in myself and possibly in many of any entrepreneur, anybody who's trying to try something new and trying to master something. I think it's a human thing to kind of deal with an imposter syndrome. Like, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough to give advice? Well, I think we should all be a little bit kinder and forgiving and more gracious to ourselves. So I want to lead by example and just tell you what my experience is and say that while I can't seriously call this advice, these are just sort of the things that I felt strongly about that could help you in your roaster's journey. A lot of you ask me, like, what are your tips? What are your biggest wins and losses? What's your biggest tips that you can give to me as somebody who's learning to roast? So they won't be in any real order. The obvious things that I would do when I'm first starting out roasting is just getting my hands on any sort of learning material. That's obvious. You're probably already doing that. So if you're not doing the obvious thing, which is just like, hey, look, this book's about roasting, let me read it. Or this blog's about roasting, let me read it. If you're not doing that already, do that. That's kind of obvious to me. So online blogs, books, YouTube, anything that's readily available to you. So some other things that maybe might not be as obvious as you're reading a bunch of books and sort of generalizing, and maybe you're reading about how to roast, but maybe it's about a popcorn roaster, or maybe it's about a convection machine or a different machine that you're not going to get. Okay, so there's not always going to be like a really step-by-step how-to guide for your roaster unless you take say some sort of class on it or something like that. I think you should know where you're going, meaning what are your long-term goals and what are your short-term goals. Short-term meaning months, no time frame on that. Long-term meaning years. So to me, I've already been through a couple of things where I'm trying to pick up a new skill, and when I'm trying to learn a new skill, I need to know where I'm going, and in my case, that brings me more success because I don't feel like I'm wasting my time and money. And we don't have all the time in the world. We can usually always make more money, but we don't like to waste money in general, right? So I like to know where I'm going. So for me, I was like, when I finally decided, and it helps to be decisive. So if you're a flip-floppy sort of person, you're going to have a hard time. You need to be decisive. Be like, I'm going to get into roasting, and my goal with roasting is to master that machine. That was my goal. And I was like, I want to master this machine, and I'm going to use this machine, which was the hot top, because it mimics the big boy roasters, what they use in commercial roasteries, which is a drum roaster. So I wanted something to start, which was the hot top, which mimicked a drum roaster with a cooling tray. I wanted that. And on top of that, because they had a basic hot top, I wanted to data log, because that's where I read somewhere, I picked this up somewhere, that they data log their roast and you could see the curve of the roast. You could see what's going on, and you can get very nuanced and complicated and technical about it. Even though I had no idea what they were talking about, I was like, I want to go there. I don't know how to do that, but I want to go there. And that was my that was my short-term goal. I want to go there, which was data log and learn and master how to roast on my machine, which mimicked the commercial roaster. Okay, so I probably established this short-term goal for myself within 2 months of deciding that I wanted to actually roast coffee. Because when you actually decide to roast coffee and you start reading all the things, you start to learn, oh, there's air roasters, popcorn roasters, there's this Baymore looking thing, there's the home roasting versus commercial roasting. So you start to learn all that stuff, and you start piecemealing everything together. So from there, once you know a little bit, you can start to formulate goals for yourself. I'm a sort of person that I don't like to form goals that are too outlandish. I'm not a dreamer. I actually like to have all the ingredients in front of me, and then I can make paella if I feel like it'll work, or pasta or whatever, right? Like I like to have all the ingredients in front of me and see what's possible. So it depends what kind of person you are, okay? But I would say have short and long-term goals. Like, where do you want to go? Next, I would say once you have that done, you'll be like, okay, cool. If I'm just doing this for fun, if you're an enthusiast, just do what feels good, okay? But if you have somewhere that you want to go, you have monetary goals, you want to make a business out of it, those are the things where you have to start making real steps and decisions that you can actually monitor, that you can actually keep track of. Because if you're not keeping track, this is a great quote, what gets measured gets managed. So if you don't measure what's going on with your progression of your learning, how to roast and all that stuff, you're not really going to get to where you want to be. It's going to be an aimless run. For some, that's great if you're having fun, because you never know where the turns may go, and you get surprised all the time. You have all the time in the world because it's a hobby. But if you want to turn this into something where you have financial goals, then you have to start putting in those sort of steps and thinking that way. With that being said, you know where you want to go. Like for me, I was like, oh, I want to roast like commercial roasters. So I was like, for sure, I've got to get a drum roaster. And then for sure, at some point, I've got to get a double wall drum roaster. I just started to read about gas versus electric and kind of like thinking about what's going to give me power, what's going to give me responsiveness, what's going to be the most efficient, what's also going to be aesthetically pleasing to me. There's a sort of image in my mind of who I am when I become a roaster. And that was really important to me in the beginning. It was like, I wanted things to look a certain way. I'm about design. I'm about the way things look and feel. You eat with your eyes. You know what I'm saying? So like all these sort of things, those were important to me. Like that's why I was never going to choose Baymore. It just, the look of it did not gel with me. And for me, I'm a visual person. And if I don't like what I'm looking at, or I don't like what I'm working in, or I don't feel good, or I don't feel cool even, right? Sometimes, I mean, that's why I use a lot of Apple products, because they're just intuitive, they look cool, they feel good. Even though I could also complain about it, there's something about the visual aspect of dealing with Apple and all that stuff. Same thing for me personally, with coffee roasting. I was like, I've got to get a drum roast. This is the only one that looks cool to me and mimics the commercial roasters, right? So I'm not about having ugly things. Even though I would probably be guilty of designing something ugly, or I don't know, having ugly things, but like I always want to be surrounded by beauty. Another thing the biggest thing that hung me up when I was first starting out and I was deciding, the hot top was pretty easy. It sits on your countertop. But then when we were deciding to go to the 1 kg, it was a big machine. It was going to sit and take up space. It was going to have a vent system that was going to create a lot more smoke. So it was going to be a whole new setup. I wasn't going to be inside with my little hot top. My biggest thing that hung me up was the whole system of it and how I was going to vent this thing out. And we eventually landed on the system that we have now. But, have a really good plan about how that's going to be set up for you. That way you're not kind of worried about it. And safety should be number one. I think it would be helpful to know that what you're learning while you're learning is not Bible. It may be the law right now. It may be the standard right now. But things are always changing and always growing. This is something that I really took to heart when I took that Mill City Roasters 101 class. Lauren was talking about we all thought, somebody said 30 pounds of pressure or whatever it was to tamp espresso. And when I read that too, way before that class, I just believed it. What's 30 pounds of pressure, That's just not the case all the time. It's not true all the time. And it's a lot about how science is currently right now we have a lot of things that are scientifically proven, and then later on some new theory comes out, or some new test comes out, or some new freak of nature comes out, and it proves that proven theory wrong. So, you know, this is something that I'm dealing with right now, is like, I learned some stuff from a book or from a teacher, and I really just like, this is it, this is law, this is canon, so to speak, and I can't deviate from that. And if I do, something's wrong, and it makes me judge my own skill level, or even my own coffee, where I can't even fully be present to taste what's there, because I'm thinking in the back of my head, oh, my data was wrong or off or incorrect or not perfect, right? So I think it's really helpful to know in the beginning that you are going to learn a sort of basic roast curve, a basic timing structure, a basic air structure. But I would say don't get married to it. Be open and be flexible to know that that rule may change in the future. Something will unlock, because so many people are getting involved in roasting at home and discovering new things. And we're having new types of coffees like white honey, and I don't know, just different elevations of things. Specialty coffee coming out of Vietnam. Just that alone is proof that we should not be stuck to what we first learned. You know, the tradition, you know what I mean? Just to be open. Find different teachers. Taste different methods of teaching. You know, find people that you like to learn from. Learning should be fun. And the way that somebody teaches you something, it should resonate with you. And I think Gary Vee for me is a really good example of this, because sometimes I need that sort of energy and aggressiveness to learn that particular lesson. You know, but I don't feel that I have to listen to it all the time. I don't feel obligated to him. I don't feel like I owe him anything. I don't feel like if I don't watch every piece of content, I'm not a true fan. Like, sample, take what you need, but what really matters is when you're in the roaster with your own, whatever's going on, there's so many variables, you're gonna have to develop your own method and find your own way and carve your own path and be courageous enough to do it. Ah, yes. Know that you're gonna mess up and be okay with that. Meaning, be gracious with yourself, that even when you see a crash and flick on your roast curve, you know, reserve your judgment until you cup your coffee. And if it's still acceptable, then it's acceptable. You're like, it's acceptable. I'm gonna roast again. It's all good. I guess it'll be different if you were roasting for business, and say you're roasting for a client and maybe you didn't feel great about it. Then you do whatever you need to do to sleep at night. But know that you're just going to mess up a lot when you're first roasting. If you burn your coffee, you burn your coffee. Know that you're stepping into a world where it's an art. It's not. I just spoke to Steve from Mill City Roasters, and he was saying in one of his classes, coffee is not science. You know, it's not science. It's an art. It's subjective. Coffee doesn't always behave the same way all the time. Neither do you, neither do your sensors, neither does your roaster. All that stuff. It's always changing. It's alive. And so I think when you understand that, you can be less attached to data, to machines and all this stuff, and try to just be a little bit more present with your coffee. Trust in yourself to fall and to learn and then to be better as time goes on. As long as you're dedicating yourself to learning and getting better, you will get better, because that's you're on that track, you know. This will probably just be my last tip. I think I'm covering a good amount of things. Just roast a lot. You know, I've talked about this before. I feel like it's not about getting like good or getting like becoming an expert and all this stuff. Because there's always, I feel like as you roast, and this is what I see, even with people who've been roasting for 10 years plus, you know, something can always surprise them. But I think if you get comfortable with your machine, you get comfortable with the whole idea and the whole big picture of roasting, of turning coffee from green to brown, and you get comfortable with that, and it takes just time and repetition and failing and succeeding and all that stuff, right? Just going through the motions. Yeah, it just allowing yourself to go through motions, roast a lot, find out some things, allowing yourself to be surprised, and then once again, walk up to the roaster and roast again. Like, you know, it's just, what do they say? The endless journey. It's the endless journey, and embracing that it is endless. Not that, oh, it's endless, but cool, it's endless. Like, there's so much to learn. Like, I just beat like kind of like a big boss in, I'm playing this game, Ghost of Tsushima. And it's an open world game, and you have so many of these question marks on the map. And you want to visit all these places on the map. You're like, oh, wow, like there's so much to explore. There's so much to do. That's kind of how I see coffee, is like it's a big open world game with real consequences. But it's still kind of a game if you look at it. And every time you hit one of those question marks, you visit this area, you complete the mission there, you complete the task there. And you're like, cool, like I did that, like what else is next? And you're looking for the next question mark on the map. And that's for me how like coffee roasting is there's always something to do. There's always something to learn. You know, you're never gonna beat it. And I'm like, wow, that's a really good game. That's a really good bang for my buck. And that's kind of how I look at coffee roasting. And it makes learning exciting all the time and fun all the time. You know, because you're not going to beat it. You're just like, cool, like, I'm going to get really comfortable. I'm going to get really good at pairing and countering and all this sort of thing. You know, I'm making game analogies. You're just going to get very comfortable. And then when you're faced with some weird kind of coffee, you're like, oh, interesting. Like, let's figure it out. You know, and that's the fun of it. And then being able to share that with others when you find something cool out, when you find some success, you know, and you get to share it with somebody and share your art and your passion and the love and care that you put into your coffee. You get to give that to somebody. That's awesome. That's an awesome feeling. So, I don't know. I try to provide a list that's not so obvious, I think, and I feel like a little bit introspective. These are the things that I went through, am still going through as a roaster, still starting out. Again, not that much experience, but I feel like it's still worthy, and it's practice for me to remember that. So that's why I make this video, even though I kind of like, I get the question all the time, and I'm like, I don't know, guys. and you know, again, that's me trying to show grace to myself and trying to lead by example. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being so supportive, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.